All right, so 2 years ago, I sat in this exact same spot wearing this exact same, slightly less faded tux because I was celebrating 3 years worth of climbing. That's right, exactly 3 years prior to that day, I walked into a climbing gym for the very first time and I showed everybody exactly what I was made of. Which might have been spaghetti because it looked a whole lot like falling and tearing layer upon layer of flesh off these poor hands. Some people might question why that should be celebrated, but if you climb, you should know that's all part of the experience. If you're new to climbing, you should know that 90% of climbing is falling, especially at the beginning. Except for some small number of overachievers, which definitely wasn't me, so we're just gonna pretend like they don't exist. But I'm not here to reminisce about the distant past, because there's already a video of that and you can check it out if you haven't already. Instead, I'm going to reflect on the somewhat slightly more recent past. If you can't tell already from the title of this video, 3 years worth of climbing plus 2 years into the future equals 5 years worth of climbing. That's right, I can do math. And I'll use that as a bit of a segue, because the last video showed 3 years of pretty exponential progress, and it ended on a bit of a plateau. So let's pick it back up where we left off at the local climbing gym. 3 years in, I was pretty consistently climbing V5s and 6s, projecting 7s, and I had managed to collect a couple of V8s. Grades help inform what routes and problems are accessible to you, but I don't think they should be the focus, and I mean that sincerely. Climbing should feel fun and challenging first and foremost. So if something feels easy, then it is. If something feels hard, then it's hard. However, with that being said, climbing harder boulders equates to more climbing possibilities, and grades help indicate that progress. And let's be honest, everybody likes to measure things in numbers. So in this context, I'll show some of those contentious numbers, not as a means to show how hard I can climb or not, or what grades I climb, but more so as just a rough reference of my progress. I started my 4th year of climbing stuck on the same grades, but more consistently sending them. Bing! At the time, I think it felt like a plateau, but in hindsight, there were signs of improvement. Where I would be working on a V6 or 7 for a large portion of a session or more, I started sending multiples of them in the same amount of time. Including my birthday, when I actually sent double digits of them in a single session. But I already have a video of that, so I'll just link it below. During this year, we found ourselves on some trips to some fantastic climbing destinations. While these were not climbing trips, we couldn't just visit these spots without sneaking in some climbing. Being in our 30s with full-time jobs, different schedules, limited vacation days, climbing in a destination might look a little different for us than it does for some. I hope to put together these trips into like a travel video at some point, so keep an eye out for that. Although these adventures maybe weren't the best examples of progress, they were part of our story the past 2 years. And I think the motivation to go climbing with limited time in unfamiliar places is in some way or shape progress, or at least growth. And that's right, for those of you who might question the carabiner logo, we do strap on a harness from time to time when the mood strikes. In the latter part of 2019, there were some more signs of subtle progress. When they reset the problems in the gym, I would burn through a lot of them in a single session. And the ones that I didn't felt like pretty serious projects that I wasn't always stoked to just fall off of all night. So we started to visit other gyms every so often to expose us to more styles and more progress, or at least more psych. Some of these gyms we already made trips to from time to time, like up the block. The gaps between visits meant most of the problems, if not all of them in the gym, were new upon arrival. This gym structures their problems through circuits, moving up in difficulty by color. I started to find myself climbing a large portion of the first 6 colored circuits in a session. The time between visits made progress more obvious, as I began to fully complete those circuits and started to sink my teeth into more and more of their red circuit, which is the third hardest, something I couldn't even touch before. If I had to caption the year at this point, it would just be the year of volume. Just lots and lots and lots of problems. That is, until I did it. That arbitrary, but still super exciting number, V9. I already did an in-depth boulder breakdown video showing some very specific details of this problem, so I'll just link that below for those of you who are interested. The rest of the year featured more and more volume, and I started to sneak more V8s into that. Plus, if I stand correct, another V9. So I started to turn Plateau into progress as we moved into 2020. Yeah. Do I even need to say it? We all know what happened or is still happening. So we voluntarily pulled ourselves out of our climbing gym and started trying to exercise at home with whatever we had. But that just wasn't going to cut it, and like any reasonable, stir-crazy, climbing-obsessed person, I decided to make a home climbing wall. And we made a video of that. So honestly, progress was kind of hard to measure. We didn't really have any baseline to compare ourselves to. We just had kind of sporadic hangboarding sessions where we added weight and tried to climb on the home wall as much as possible, but with full-time jobs, that meant evenings and weekends, basically a few times a week. The summer got a little crazy. My job got unexpectedly busy. Laura works in the ICU, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. And there was also a couple events, including a non-climbing related near-death experience. Plus, in the summer here, we get temperatures of 35 degrees Celsius and higher, plus humidity and the accompanied insects. So our climbing wall became less and less accessible to us. Plus, it faced the afternoon sun, which means I now know what it feels like to have burned fingertips. It's not fun. So when parks opened up and I could finally climb outside again, I didn't really know where I stood. The previous season, before our first lockdown, I climbed a bunch of V3s, some solid V4s, and a few accessible V5s. So yeah, some progress, but not a lot. I tried some harder problems too, which might have been where more of the progress was hidden, but without sends, I don't think I really noticed. So when this season rolled around, I decided to just mix things up. I was going to do the same thing I did in the gym. Volume, variety, and I can't think of another word that starts with a V, but fun. I was going to stick to accessible grades and build my pyramid. Honestly, to my surprise, I pretty easily sent a lot of problems, even flashing some, including awkward sit starts, which I was terrible at. I guess trying to maximize the height of my home wall helped, as I set a lot of sit starts to lengthen the problems. So naturally, my eyes began to wander, and I started hopping on some hard problems again. Even more surprisingly, I started sending some, even flashing one. Then sending things I tried the previous seasons with no luck. Like this problem, and this one, another one, somehow this one, and this one, and then this problem beside that one. Then linking those last two together, which becomes a V7, my first of that grade, outdoors. So within one season, I'd climbed 2 grades harder, and I'd argue it was actually more like 3. I would love to spend some more time on my season outdoors, but this video would just get way too long. I also think there's a bit of a deeper story there, and I want to do something special for it and give it proper justice, so keep an eye out for it in the near future. Hopefully I get around to it. So that wraps up the actual climbing part of this video, but my story isn't quite over yet. This video ended up being kind of like a mix of a New Year's in review video and a progress video. And I didn't end up talking about age that much, but I kept it in the title because I think everybody's progress looks unique to them based on body type and training and, yes, age. So I left it in for context for those of you who started climbing later because it's part of my story. So while I don't think I'm terribly old for a climber, I did start climbing just before my 30th birthday, meaning most of my progress has happened in my 3rd decade. I think it's worth pointing out because I find a lot of my peers, both my age and even older, started climbing at a much younger age than myself. And my decade leading up to climbing wasn't filled with a lot of fitness, meaning other than skateboarding a few blocks to work, absolutely none. Generally speaking, your ability to gain strength and build your tendons doesn't increase as you age. Tendons take a long time to develop, and if you push yourself too hard too fast, you're bound to get injured. Luckily, I've escaped that, and I've had minimal finger and general tendon injuries from climbing, although I haven't been so lucky in the rest of my life. My progress the past 2 years versus the previous 3 are a little hard to observe, mainly because I haven't climbed in a gym in over a year. But based on my outdoor experiences, I think I've progressed. How much? I don't really know, but I think I should be proud based on my age and some other circumstances that surrounded the end of the season. And I guess I'll just give that context because I spent the latter part of the season with a lower abdomen injury, meaning in typical old man fashion, I herniated myself. Non-climbing related, which is the first thing anyone asks me when I tell them, but nonetheless, I herniated myself and I spent the last part of the season outside with my insides outside. But that's not where it all ends. I wrapped up my 5th year of climbing with an incision that ran over half a foot on my abdomen. I'd show you, but I don't want to get my channel suspended. After surgery, I was off for 4 weeks in pain and discomfort. I wasn't allowed to touch anything over 25 pounds, and I was advised to ease back into any intense exercise, which by definition is climbing. So I enter my 6th year of climbing, just trying to get back to where I was. With that said, it's been a tough year for everybody, inclusive of Laura and myself. I think being cooped up for winter, locked down, overwhelmed, injured, and finally bedridden caught up to me. But at the same time, it's reignited that fire within to just get outside and climb. I hope to not only make a full recovery, but actually get stronger. If I could do so much I was proud of last year, given the circumstances, imagine what I could make of my 6th year of climbing if I could put all that behind me. So, knock on wood, and fingers crossed for everything within this vessel and everything outside of it. So that's what 5 years of climbing has looked like for me. How'd they look for you? I hope the next 5 can open up as many doors as the last. Thanks for sticking around. Feel free to leave us a comment, throw us a thumbs up, and a special thank you to those of you who've shown me some love this past year. I really do appreciate it, and it means a lot. I hope to also edit those other videos as soon as I can, so keep an eye out for those, and hopefully you dig them too. Alright, take it easy, and fingers crossed.